Most Javazon guides out there are going to tell you to have a setup which includes items like Valkyrie Wing, Titan's Revenge, Razor Tail, and other uniques that you either don't have or just can't afford. That's fine. I'll show you how to make a dirt cheap Javazon from scratch. As you can see, this Amazon has absolutely nothing on her. She is completely naked except for her starting javelins and her starting buckler, items that she starts off with when you first make the character. Of course, Lightning Fury, which is going to be the main skill that you're going to use on this build, does require javelins. So if you don't have javelins for whatever reason, then you can always just chop them from normal difficulty at Char C in Act 1. So I'm also going to assume that your character has done all of the skill quests and all of the stat point quests and the Anya quest for resistances and the Golden Bird quest for a bit of plus life. Maybe whoever was generous enough to rush you did all of these quests and then you decided to go and do a bunch of bail runs. Who knows? This character is just starting off at level 75, and you can even be lower level than this, but I use 75 as a nice starting point, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you're at least above level 60, I suppose. So, the first thing you're going to want to do, because the build does rely on this skill, is you're going to want to max out Lightning Fury. Lightning Fury is the main skill you're going to use if you want to clear big packs of monsters at a time. It's got lots of AoE when combined with Pierce. As I'll show later on, when Lightning Fury hits a monster, that monster will release lightning bolts in every direction, and then for every monster that Lightning Fury proceeds to pierce through, the same thing will happen for each of them. So that's where most of the AoE comes from. So definitely Lightning Fury and Pierce are going to be two skills that you're going to want to level up as part of this build. The other skill that you're going to want to level up is Charge Strike, or max out as Charge Strike. Charge Strike is not only a synergy of Lightning Fury, but it's a very important skill to have since this is going to be your main single target ability. Like if you have a specific monster that you want to kill, say Mephisto or Diablo or some other act boss, then Charge Strike is the skill you're going to want to use. So Charge Strike for single target, Lightning Fury for AoE. And of course, both of these synergize with one another, so all the more reason to max them out. Later, you're going to max out the synergies for Lightning Fury too, but before we do that, you're then going to want to invest some points into Crit Strike and Penetrate because they are synergies for Pierce. Now, you don't want to max out Pierce. You want to get it to roughly level 9. And the reason you want level 9 is that if you have a Razor Tail, Razor Tail adds 33% chance to Pierce, so the 69% chance plus the 33% chance from Razor Tail would add to 100% chance to Pierce, and any more than that into Pierce is essentially redundant. Of course, while you don't have Razor Tail, you could allocate a few extra points into Pierce, but just know that if at some point you do get Razor Tail, then those extra points will kind of go to waste, and you do get diminishing returns as you add more and more points into Pierce. So I would say that 9's a good starting point, maybe even fewer than that, because at some point you're going to probably have equipment that will boost your or the level of your Pierce. You don't need to add 9 hard points into Pierce, you just need to have it at level 9, even with equipment. So 9 points into Pierce is my recommendation. Then you're going to want to have 1 point in Inner Sight and Slow Missiles as a prerequisite for Decoy. Now this is actually a surprisingly useful skill. You would put this up somewhere to let monsters attack the decoy, and at the same time you would throw Lightning Fury at the monsters that are attacking the decoy. That's one of the strategies that you can use when you are playing as a Javazon and you want to get monsters off your back. Now, I would also personally recommend a point in a Dodge, Avoid, Evade, and Valkyrie. Valkyrie is really useful as almost like a second mercenary, I would say. The thing about Valkyrie is that it can mess up your herding when you do cows, as I'm going to show later. I'm going to do Nightmare cows and I'm going to do Hell cows just to show you what this build is capable of. But Valkyrie is quite useful in these areas if you need a second meat shield on top of your decoy, which I would personally vouch for. Dodge, avoid, and evade, the thing is, there are some people who vouch against these, since you can sometimes end up in dodge lock or evade lock, but I prefer having a point in each of these. They are kind of useful passive and magic skills that will allow you to avoid taking damage from time to time, and then of course they are prerequisites for Valkyrie, so 1 point in pretty much everything, 9 points except for Pierce, in which I put 9 points in the passive and magic skills tree. And then the rest of your skill choices, it doesn't really matter where you put them as long as you put them into one of the synergies for Lightning Fury. So even, let's say, Lightning Strike. Lightning Fury is a synergy of Lightning Fury, so I'm just going to go and max that out. This is why I said earlier, as long as you're like level 60 or above, it doesn't really matter too much. The rest of your points from here on out are just mostly going to go into maxing out the synergies for Lightning Fury. And the more points you have, the more damage you're going to get on Lightning Fury from the synergies, but even a maxed out Lightning Fury and Charge Strike will do massive amounts of damage alongside Pierce. Now for the stat points. Typically you would put enough points into strength and dexterity that you can wear your equipment, and then the rest of your points will go into vitality. Now I'm going to start off by putting 100 points into vitality so that I can farm Eldritch in a moment, but just know that later on, once I know what equipment I'm going to be wearing, I'll put enough points into strength and dex to wear them, and then I'll just invest the rest into vitality. Now, why I'm going to farm Eldritch, I think I need to explain that, and that'll be the last thing before I get right into gameplay here. Later, I'm going to be shopping for items, because my character right now is completely naked. She has nothing on her. So, I need gold to start buying items from vendors. Many of the items, or pretty much all of the items that you're going to start a Javazon off with, can easily be shopped from these vendors. Anya is going to be selling boots, javelins, and gloves. Larzuk is going to sell a belt and a helm. And Charcy in normal difficulty will be selling armor and shield. I'll talk more about that when I make it there, but I just need a bit of gold to start off with. And I'll also show how this all works. As you can see, I just put up a decoy. All the monsters will be attacking that decoy. Of course, I am unlucky with this monster spawn. I'm going to try this again because there were some blunderboars in the way. But the main idea here is that you would go and do Eldritch runs over and over again. Maybe like 5 or 6 times should be enough. And sometimes you don't even need to get your decoy up. Watch this. Charge Strike, I used that there, and it just completely annihilated Eldritch. So you can kind of see the reason why I'm doing this. I collect equipment from Eldritch, and then I would sell it to Mala. I didn't get any loot from Eldritch just now, but hopefully this third run will get me some gold, and then I can actually use that. Oh, and there we go, everything's dead. So, I have some items here that I didn't actually go and sell, unfortunately for me. Okay, there. So, now, after a couple of runs, you'll have enough gold to sell to the vendors. I'd say roughly 100,000 gold. If you have 100,000 gold, that's probably going to be enough to buy everything that you need. Yeah, so you can see that this run I got 15,000. I usually get a lot more than that from 3 runs of Eldritch, but let's just say that you have enough gold for this, in the interest of saving time on this video. Let's say that you actually have enough gold to start buying items. Like I said, 100,000 gold is my recommendation. A little bit less is probably fine. If you want to be safe, go get more. you will start shopping for your equipment at Anya. I recommend Anya because you're going to want to get boots from her, and this will make your life a lot easier when you shop for the other items. Anya starts off also next to a red portal. Like I said, if you have done the Anya quest, then, and I mean, assuming that you haven't done the Neolithak quest, then you will have a red portal right here, and then you can just keep running through this portal, and then you can keep talking to Anya over and over and over again. And the item that you are looking for are actually 40 faster run walk boots, right? 40 faster run walk boots. Do not settle for anything less than 40 faster run walk. Don't settle for 30s, don't settle for 20s, don't settle for 10s. You want 40 faster run walk, and there's two reasons for this. The first being that faster run walk is the Javazon's main way to get around from place to place, because she doesn't have any mobility skills like Paladin's charge or vigor aura, or the sorceress's teleport. So she's going to be running a lot. So 40 faster run walk boots, you can't really contest this early on, unless you maybe get your hands on silkweaves for some reason, which come with 30 faster run walk. But if you're shopping from Anya, just don't cheap out. The only real question for 40 faster run walk boots is if they come with a second modifier, right? Like, if they come with plus lightning resist, that's pretty awesome. But 40 faster run walk boots is mostly what matters, because this build is mostly going to be farming cows, where they do physical damage and not a lot of elemental damage unless you come across a unique monster. The other reason why it's important to have faster run walk is that you're going to be herding cows a lot. That meaning that you're gonna, when you do start doing cow runs, you're going to group up all of the cows in a big pack, and it's a lot easier to do this with faster run walk or high faster run walk than it is with lower faster run walk, obviously. So, faster run walk boots are essential. 40 faster run walk boots in particular. The next thing you're going to shop for are javelins. Now, this is probably, if you are to leave off on this video, there's and get one tidbit of advice from it: do not shop glaives. You're looking specifically for throwing spears. You're not just looking for any plain old set of javelins. You need throwing spears. And there is a couple reasons for this. The first, as you can see, just looking between the two, glaives only come with 40 quantity. And other items that you'll see too, like this great pylum, they come with like 50 quantity. Throwing spears come with 80. So that's close to double that of the glaives and pretty much any other item that you're going to be shopping for. So you want to look for throwing spears specifically, and you don't want to settle for anything less than that. And of the throwing spears, the type of throwing spears that you're going to be looking for in particular, after you do this over and over again, you have actually a number of choices. You can look for a set of throwing spears that have +2 to Amazon skill levels, +3 to javelin and spear skills, +40 IAS, if I can just find it, there we go, plus 40% IAS, plus increased stack size, or replenishes quantity. So if you want to have as much damage as possible, then you're looking for +3 javelin spear skills on your javelins. +2 to Amazon skill levels is nice if you want to boost the skills on your passive and magic skill tree, like Valkyrie and Pierce. Personally, I would recommend either replenishes quantity or increased stack size. The reason being that as you do cow runs, as much as possible, you want to minimize the number of times that you go to Charcy. If you have like +3 javelin spear skills, throwing spears, and you start doing cow runs, you might find that you'll have to run back to Charcy and repair or replenish your javs over and over again, and that not only gets really annoying really quickly, but that'll also slow down the speed of your runs. You want your runs to be as fast as possible, and the fastest way to do this in general, I would say, is to have 3 javs, two sets of jabs in your inventory and one that you're going to wear. And I'll show the setup in a moment here. Okay, so here we go. So yeah, my setup would usually look something like this. I like to have replenishes quantity on hand, and then I like to have 2 replenishes quantity javelins in my inventory. And then once I start running out on my main weapon, I would switch it out for a different set of throwing spears, and then after that I'd rotate it out for the third one. And this will ensure that you return back to Charcy as infrequently as possible. You can also do this with increased stack size throwing spears, but in my case I just settled for, or I know that a lot of people like to use replenishes quantity for this too. You could also get a set of throwing spears that have both increased stack size and replenishes quantity, but honestly, I would say that it's not worth the amount of time that you would have to shop at Anya just to get one of these. Even just having one of the 2 modifiers, replenishes quantity or increased stack size, is good enough. Especially considering that as you do cow runs, you're probably going to get an upgrade fairly quickly anyway. One other thing to note about javelins that have increased stack size that I really want to emphasize here. Even though these all say that they have increased stack size, notice how each of these has a different prefix. This one has compact, or this one's a compact throwing spear, this one's a thin throwing spear, and this one's a dense throwing spear. If you are to get increased stack size, you want dense throwing spears, because dense throwing spears add 81 to 120 to the quantity, whereas compact and thin actually only increase the capacity of throwing spears by either 21 to 40 for compact or 41 to 80 for thin. So dense throwing spears are your best option. If you are to go for increased stack size, don't settle for compact or thin. And then in the case of replenishes quantity, once again, the game doesn't tell you this, but there's actually a difference between throwing spear of replenishing and throwing spear of propagation. They both have the modifier replenishes quantity, but throwing spear of replenishing only replenishes quantity at a rate of once per 20 seconds. Throwing spear of propagation replenishes 1 throwing spear per 10 seconds. That's a pretty big difference, because the throwing spears of propagation will replenish their quantity twice as quickly as the throwing spear of replenishing. So definitely throwing spears of propagation or dense throwing spears are my recommendation. Just have 3 of them and just rotate between them as necessary. So that is pretty much it for the javs. Now the gloves. Now this is one of the key parts of this video that I really want to... I'll just get this guy out of the way so I can continue shopping. But this is one of the key things about this video that I wanted to talk about. You're going to want to shop for a set of gloves that have 3 to jab skills and 20 increased attack speed, or 320s as I'm going to refer to them as from now on. So you're looking for 320s, or possibly even 220s if you're exceptionally lazy. Maybe not even exceptionally lazy. The thing with 320s is they're actually quite rare. It can take you hours, like many hours, to look for even one set of 320s. So you would actually do this over and over and over again, talking to Anya, and then you would be checking out the gloves until you actually get your hands on a set of 320s. Now, if you're lazy like I am, you might actually even settle for something like 3 jab and spear skills, which, as you're starting out your character, is fine for the most part. But just know that 320s are pretty much a best in slot for the Javazon. Except for if you were to get your hands on a set of rare 220s that come with modifiers like fire resist, lightning resist, plus strength, plus dex, plus MF. If you got a set of rare gloves like that, or some combination of those modifiers that included 220, then that might also be considered best in slot, but 320s, once you have that, you're not going to have to replace them pretty much for the rest of the season. So, Anya, 320s. So, yeah, it would be some combination of these two modifiers. I wasn't able to shop Lancer's Gauntlets of Alacrity in preparation for this video, but just know that it can be done. And there is actually a shortcut that I'm going to show you on how to shop for 320s even quicker. Intuitively, you might do something like this. You might talk to Anya, and then you'd check the two gloves, and then you'd look at them again, and you do this over and over until you found a set of gloves that had the modifiers 3 and 20. But there's actually a much faster way to do this, it turns out. And that's actually to just look at the color of the gloves. If they don't have this color right here, then they cannot be 320s. Even 220s, I think. Yeah, I think this color even applies to 220s, but the main idea here is, and here we go, here's another set of 3 jab and spear skills. But if you found 320s, they would be this color. So rather than check every individual set of gloves, only look for the ones that are gold colored like these. And that is probably the fastest way that you can get 320s from Anya, just off of color recognition. As you shop for the gloves, that'll save you a lot of time, and I don't think that a lot of other sources that I've seen for making a Javazon ever go and cover that. But yeah, so 3 Jav and Spear skills gloves replenishes quantity throwing spears with 2 replenishes quantity throwing spears in my inventory as backup. Of course, once again, propagation, not replenishing. That's very important. And then, of course, Greaves of Acceleration for faster run walks. So this is already 3 of the pieces of equipment that you need that have been shopped. The next thing that you're going to want to look for are going to be your belt and helm. You're looking in particular for a belt that has plus to life or plus to FHR. Personally, I'd vouch for plus life. I much prefer having plus life, but if you find an FHR belt, that's fine too. I've never actually played around with Frost Nova. That might be decent too. But just to play it safe, you would do this over and over again from Larzuk, and eventually he will give you a belt that has either plus to life. I prefer plated belts with plus 80 to or 80 plus 80 life or more, or a belt that has plus 24 faster hit recovery. Now, the reason I prefer plus life is because the armor that you're going to use, as I'll show in a second, is stealth, and that already comes with plus 25% FHR. So if you do have a belt with plus 24 FHR, then you're only going to save yourself a frame on faster hit recovery. But plus 100 to life is pretty solid for pretty much any situation. So I like to have a belt that gives lots of plus to life early on. Also, do note that I recommend shopping for a belt, or a plated belt in particular, because it comes with 4 rows of potions. Don't go and shop or use a belt that comes with any less than 4 rows. Like, if you were to go to Charcy, I think she might sell, like, she sells, like, belts, like plain magic belts.
What can I do for you?
And occasionally, yeah, light belts here. But she can sell demon hide sashes from time to time. But if you're at Larzuk, he will always sell plated belts. And plated belts always come with 4 sockets. So, yeah, it's important having the 4 rows of potions, and of course having a modifier that will amp your survivability here. And that's why I recommend shopping the belt from Larzuk. Then the next thing you're going to want to shop from Larzuk is of course the 3-socket helmet. Well, once again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to want to run to the waypoint. You're going to want to run back.
Can I help you?
And then eventually Larzuk will give you a 3-socket helmet as you do this over and over again. A 3-socket helmet, and this doesn't have to be a magic 3-socket helmet, and it doesn't have to be a plain 3-socket helmet either. This is kind of important to know. You could be playing through Nightmare, and maybe you'll find like a 3-socket mask Just any helmet with any plain helmet with 3 sockets and a reasonably low strength requirement is good enough. The reason being that you're going to want to pop 3 tier runes into this helmet. Most of the time, if you have a socketed item, you would want a non-magic plain armor or weapon that you could make a rune word in. But in this case, with me recommending that you stuff 3 tier runes into a hat, this isn't actually a helmet, or this isn't actually a rune word that I'm trying to make for a helmet. You actually want to put 3 tier runes into your helm so that you get the +6 mana after each kill bonus, which will make it a lot easier to do cow runs and have them be self-sustaining. I'll show what I mean once I make it to the Nightmare cow run. But yeah, having a helmet with 3 tier runes is going to be what you're going to start off with. You can get the 3 tier runes and the Tal, the Eth, and the other Eth from normal Countess. If you don't know where that is, that's normal difficulty, Act 1, Black Marsh. You should know how to do Countess if you're watching this video, but if you don't, then you can go look that up, how to do those Countess runs. But yeah, you can find the Tal and the 2 Eths and the 3 tier runes from normal Countess. You'd maybe have to run it maybe a dozen or 2 dozen times, but it shouldn't take you that long really to farm up these runes. The only rune that you would have trouble farming is the Shale rune. The Shale rune that you're going to need for Rhyme, as I'm going to talk about in a little bit. The Shale rune might be a little bit trickier to find since you can't actually get it from normal, or at least you can't get it from normal Countess. You can get it from Nightmare Countess, but honestly I would recommend farming it from normal cows, or trying to farm it from normal cows. I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out how to get the Shale rune. You can't get it from normal Hellforge either, but you can get it from Nightmare Hellforge. Maybe you could trade for it. Maybe you could run Nightmare Countess for it too. A number of options, but this isn't as easy to get as the Tal, the Eth, and the tier runes that I was just talking about. Now, moving on to the armor and shield, because I was just talking about the belt and the helmet. As you can see, the character is pretty much fully geared now, except for the armor and the shield, of course. I was using a buckler, but we are going to want to sub that out for something else. And you're actually going to get this from normal difficulty Act 1 Charcy. You're looking actually for a 2-socket armor, and you're looking for a 2-socket shield. And the reason why you want... And these have to be plain armors and shields, by the way. Yeah, so this one will work. It can't be a magic 2-socket armor like with the helmet, of course, because you're making a rune word into this. So don't just shop like a magic armor or a magic shield. This one actually does have to be a plain armor and a plain shield, because you are making a stealth rune word and you're making a rhyme. Now, I don't know why Charcy is not offering me the 2-socket shield, but luckily I do have a 2-socket shield here, just in case she was going to be stingy about giving me one. So, now that you have the 2-socket armor and the 2-socket shield, you can make a stealth, Tal Eth into your armor, and Shale Eth into your shield. Now, talking about stealth, if you've seen my previous budget videos, or, well, if you've been playing this game for a while, you already know about what bonuses the stealth gives. It gives faster run walk, it gives faster cast rate, it gives faster hit recovery, and a lot of other bonuses which are pretty cool too, but the top 3 are the most important ones, particularly faster run walk. Faster run walk is pretty important for an Amazon, as I said earlier, for hurting and for mobility, moving around from place to place. Faster hit recovery is nice. It'll boost your survivability by quite a bit, since if you do get hit, then you'll recover a little bit more quickly. And then, of course, there's the faster cast rate. Now, there's something that you need to know about faster cast rate on the Javazon, and that's that Lightning Fury and Charge Strike are not based on your cast rate, they're based on increased attack speed, which is why it's kind of important to have 320s, or even 220s for that matter. Having 20 IAS is what increases the rate at which you're throwing your javelins as part of Lightning Fury. Faster cast rate doesn't really help you on that front, but it will help with casting Decoy and Valkyrie, if I'm not mistaken. But otherwise, the faster cast rate is not that useful, unlike with most other builds out there that would actually be relying on FCR, like the Hammerdin or the Blizzard Sorceress. The Javazon doesn't really care about FCR, at least not before they have, say, Enigma or some other item that gives them teleport. Having said that, the reason why you want Rhyme Shield, it's not for all resistances, it's not for faster block rate, it's not for regen mana, it's not for the extra MF. These are all really useful bonuses and really icing on the cake. You want Rhyme because it gives you cannot be frozen. If ever you come across a monster that is cold enchanted or does cold damage inherently, like Bone Mages in Act 2, you don't want to be frozen. If you are frozen, you're not only going to run more slowly because, well, you actually need the faster run walk on this build since you can't just teleport willy-nilly. You're not only going to run more slowly, but it's also going to affect the rate at which you throw Lightning Fury. And since you don't actually have that much resistance to cold, you're going to be frozen for a really long time. A lot of the time in Hell difficulty especially. So cannot be frozen is absolutely essential for this build, I would say. And honestly, having these other bonuses are pretty fantastic too. Having plus increased chance to block is kind of nice, along with faster block rate. Having plus to all resistances, and even having some MF is pretty much just icing on the cake. Just know that the most important reason why you want to have Rhyme is cannot be frozen for the reasons that I had just mentioned. So that pretty much covers all of the starting equipment that you need on the Javazon. The only things that you, at this point, will need are 2 rings and an amulet, which, for this build, are not really that important. If you were playing as a sorceress or a Hammerdin, you might want 2 rings that have plus FCR or plus resistances, but since you're going to be farming Nightmare Cows or Hell Cows a lot of the time, as I'm going to show you in a bit, you're mostly not going to need rings. Although you can occasionally get rings that give plus to resistances or plus mana after each kill. These would be the best case scenario. But even if you don't get these, they're not absolutely mandatory and they're not going to have a huge impact on how your build works. So don't worry so much about them. Even if you could get rings with plus MF, that's pretty decent too. But just know that they're not this isn't make or break. Plus 64 mana is pretty nice though. If you can get rings with plus mana, that's awesome, but once again, if you get completely trash rings, just know that it's not a big deal. This build can function perfectly fine without them. And of course your amulet, you can go gamble one if you need, but frankly, after doing like a couple of counter runs, very likely you'll come across an amulet that you can use anyway, so that's not a huge deal.
Impossible.
So this character is now fully geared. Not really fully geared with like endgame equipment, but it's geared enough that you can go and do something, as I'm going to demonstrate in a second. One other thing that I forgot to mention, by the way, alternatives for your helmet and your armor. I use the 3-tier hat personally because having mana after each kill is really important for self-sustaining, and the same thing with stealth for faster run walk, that's kind of important too. But some alternatives that you could use for your armor includes Peace. Peace comes with +2 to Amazon skill levels, which boosts your damage and boosts everything in your passive and magic skill tree. It also comes with FHR, so you don't really lose out on that much in the faster hit recovery department. The main problem with Peace that I find is that, first of all, you need a Shale, a Thull, and an Am, and that can take you a bit of time to go and farm. But more importantly, it has a chance to cast Valkyrie on striking, and this can be a problem sometimes, because if you're trying to herd a bunch of cows together, and then a Valkyrie does spawn, then it can mess up your herding from time to time. But you could always just try to unsummon it. If your Valkyrie were to spawn off of Peace, then you can just unsummon it. Personally, I find it to be a bit of a nuisance, so I prefer Stealth, especially because it gives faster on walk, which I value a bit more. But just know that Peace is also a pretty decent alternative to Stealth. And then, of course, Lore, if you want more plus damage to your Lightning Fury. Lore is the way to go because it adds +1 to all skills. It also gives a number of other useful bonuses, including +2 mana after each kill. Not as much as a 3-tier helmet, but it will give you some sustain. Yeah, if you want more damage, especially in Hell difficulty, Lore is probably going to be the way to go. But personally, I prefer 3-tier hat so that the runs are self-sustaining, as I'm going to show in a second. And I almost forgot, I'm going to throw the rest of the points into Vitality. As you can see, all my equipment, I can wear all my equipment now, so the rest of the points go into Vitality, and my character now has a little over 1,000 life to work with. So before I do anything else, I just want to get my Mer killed, so that it's easier to do the herding that I was talking about. Okay, so I'm going to quickly demonstrate what it means to herd cows together. So instead of throwing javelins at individual cows, you want to get a bunch of cows lined up, and then you want to throw 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and once again, as you can see, just herding the cows again, and then 1, 2, 3. And they're all dead, and there's an amulet right there, so I think I did manage to get my hands on that. Oh, cool, 34 fire res. See, solid, there's your amulet right there. So, yeah, that's mainly all there is to it. And you would just repeat this over and over again in the secret cow level. You get a bunch of cows together, run in circles, and then you throw a couple of javelins. Here's another thing you can do too. You can set up a decoy, and then you could throw your javelins. This also makes your life a lot easier, right? So that's also another option. And then, of course, you would go and check out what items that they dropped. They didn't drop anything useful, and then you just keep going. So something to keep in mind, I was talking about this earlier. It's important to have this 3-tier hat so that you don't run out of mana while you're doing cow runs. At least in Nightmare. Normally, if you're like a Cold Sork or a Hammerdin, you might rely on a mercenary to carry an insight for you. With this build, or with this setup, with a 3-tier hat, this build is mostly self-sustaining. You will generally not run out of mana in Nightmare Cows, and you generally won't run out of javelins because you have replenishes quantity, and if for some reason you did run out in a run, then you could always just sub it out easily for another set of throwing spears. So, yeah. So once again, I'm going to set up a decoy. I want to actually show quickly how easy it is to kill this unique monster here with Charge Strike. And actually, no, hold on. That one's got Spectral Hit. So, yeah, that one's got Spectral Hit, so he's a little bit tankier than the other ones. But, yeah, generally, if you had like a unique monster, just like a straggler unique monster somewhere, then you would just throw Charge Strike at it a couple times, or hit it with Charge Strike, and then it would just be dead. And, yeah, I pretty much said everything I needed to for why this setup works as it should. Mana after each kill for sustain, replenishes quantity for sustain. You can see that if I had a Merc, not only would it probably have died by now, but also it wouldn't be as easy to herd the cows. That's a pretty big mob right there. Now then I would just throw 1, 2, 3 jabs and pretty much everything's dead. Even in Nightmare difficulty or late Nightmare difficulty, the Javazon does massive amounts of damage. You don't need tons of equipment like Titan's Revenge or Razor Tail or a Spirit Monarch to do lots of damage. All you need are some of the items that I've shown here, and you're already good to go. So also, I did just set the player's difficulty to player's 8, because I wanted to show that indeed this build can still perform just fine even on higher player difficulties in Nightmare. It can also perform in Hell, but it's not. I definitely wouldn't recommend doing a player's 8 Hell difficulty run with budget equipment. So you can see these cows are. These cows that I'm hitting right now are players 8 cows, and they are. They take a few more jabs to go down, but they still go down pretty quickly. I'm going to get a decoy here so that I can kill these cows. Yeah. And that's mainly all there is to it for this build. You just herd a bunch of cows together, you throw a few Lightning Furies, maybe get a decoy somewhere, or a Valkyrie. I haven't actually shown that one in action, but yeah, here. Let's set up a Valkyrie and a decoy even. There we go. And then you just throw a couple of jabs while your Valkyrie goes and soaks up some damage. Very useful meat shield, especially when you get to higher levels, once you have better equipment. But even 1 point, you can soak up a couple hits from cows, which is kind of nice. And that's mainly all there is to it, to doing a run with the Javazon on Nightmare. By the way, so why did I do a run on Nightmare, or why would I recommend to do Nightmare cow runs to start? It's mostly because you're looking for some equipment, or some more equipment that'll help you as you do Hell cow runs. And oh, there we go. Okay, so it's because the charged bolts weren't hitting him from charge strike. But yeah, look how quickly that cow died. I think that was a player's 8 cow. Yeah, look at that. That definitely was a player's 8 cow, and that went down really fast. That's the power of charge strike. Single target damage. Charge strike generally can't be beat. And of course, AoE damage, Lightning Fury is amazing for that. So, why would I recommend Nightmare cows? Well, there's a couple reasons why Nightmare cows is important. You can use Nightmare cows as a starting point to farm better equipment, namely in the form of better jabs. Here I'm using like throwing spears of propagation, but if you could get a set of rare javelins with like +2 to Amazon skill levels with replenishes quantity, that is fantastic. Even if you don't get your hands on such a set of jabs, there are definitely other items that could be upgraded too. You could get, say, Alder's Boots, you could get Silk Weaves. You can actually get a lot of the budget equipment for a Javazon in Nightmare cows. Items like Titan's Revenge, Razor Tail, Valkyrie Wing, and Silk Weaves, I think pretty much all of them can drop from Nightmare cows. So, while you farm Nightmare cows, you can kill them really quickly. You can do this on players 7 difficulty if you're playing single player, and you can still get some pretty decent loot in the form of equipment upgrades. You can also get some really nice runes that will allow you to build the Harmony Bow. I'll talk about Harmony in a second. That's going to be the item that I recommend to have on Switch. But cows, if I'm not mistaken, can drop up to an Ist rune, I think it is, in Nightmare difficulty. So even if you got your hands on like a Paul rune, an rune, a Mal rune, or an Ist rune, you could actually trade these for some of the gear upgrades that you so desperately need on your Javazon, or maybe not desperately need, but could definitely use. Items like I mentioned earlier, like Titan's Revenge. If you got like a Mal or an Ist, you could probably trade that out for a Titan's Revenge if you are playing multiplayer. But supposing that you didn't get your hands on one of those runes, eventually you'll probably come across some of these runes, Ith, Soul, and Co runes along with a Tier rune. These will allow you to make Harmony, which is really useful because it comes with Vigor Aura. And of course, Vigor Aura allows you to run even faster on top of the faster run walk equipment that you already have. So I'm going to show just how important the Harmony Bow is in just a moment. I'm just going to quickly set this back to players 1 so that when I go to Hell difficulty, I don't just get killed outright. So you can see with the Harmony Bow, there's a pretty massive difference at the rate at which I run. And more than that, it also increases your sprint stamina, which might not seem like such a huge deal, but it turns out that sometimes you will run out of stamina. Or at least I find that I run out of stamina from time to time in cows. Okay. And let's just get away from the... Look at that. Monsters can't even hit me because of how quickly I run. Oh, okay. Well, fine. I'll kill everything first, then I'll pick up the worst one. See, even in Hell difficulty, you can one-shot a lot of the monsters. Okay, let me actually just get rid of some of the equipment that or junk equipment that I've been carrying around here. And then I'll go grab the Horde Slag. Yeah, even in Hell difficulty, you can one-shot most of the monsters here, which is pretty amazing. So here we go. This is going to be a Hell difficulty cow run on players 1, not players 8.
Yes.
I don't think I need to explain why you would go to Hell cows, but just in case, Hell cows would be good for if you're looking for high runes mostly. Hell cows can drop most of the items in the game, including but not limited to Monarch shields. They can actually even drop items like Griffin's Eye, and I don't know about Griffin's Eye, but I'm pretty sure they can drop Death's Web, but they have an extremely low chance to do it. Don't ever expect that to happen. The main reason you would want to farm Hell cows, especially in the late game, is because they are a great source of runes. There's a lot of them, or the mob density in the Secret Cow level is enormous, so you will get runes from them fairly frequently, and they can drop up to Zod, of course, or essentially every rune in the game. So yeah, as you can see, we've got a bunch of cows together. Now I'm just going to throw a couple jabs. Even in Hell difficulty, assuming of course that it's players 1, you can easily kill all of these cows. And I don't actually want to get within range of a monster that's cursed. So, Death Mask here, if that were a set Death Mask, then already you would have a Talon Mask, which would be something that you could even give to a Merc. Same strategy as before, and not with that much difference in terms of killing speed either. You sit down, you throw a couple jabs, and then everything dies. The thing to note here is that it's not as self-sustaining, these runs, as Nightmare Cows, sorry. The thing is, in Nightmare Cows, if you throw 2 or 3 jabs, you kill the entire pack, and then you get all your mana back. But here, it takes a few more than 2 or 3 jabs. So as you do the run, you're probably going to need to pick up equipment as you go along, or not pick up equipment, but pick up some potions. But you got the general gist of how this run's done. Probably at the very beginning of the run, what I should have done was refill my inventory, or refill my belt with a bunch of potions, but once again, I'm just demonstrating kind of the general idea of how these runs are supposed to be carried out, so not a huge deal. And yeah, this is the general idea of it. You can see that I'm running out of throwing spears, so I'm just going to rotate that out for my other replenishes quantity one. I mean, of course I have 2, but one of them will be sufficient here. You can now see what I mean when I was talking about runs being self-sustaining. You don't want to have to keep going back to talk to Charcy. That just gets super annoying, and it really slows you down. Just being able to rotate javelins so that you go to Charcy as few times as possible is great, and of course having plus mana after each kill makes it so that like as you kill more and more cows, you don't need to rely on a Merc that has insight, or you don't have to chug down like 30 mana potions a run. Yeah, and that's basically it. I don't really think there's much more that I have to say as far as the build's concerned. I think I've given a general idea of what really needs to be done when you play this build. Once again, you herd a bunch of cows together. Maybe pop a decoy if you feel like it, if you feel like there's too many monsters in the way, and then you just throw a couple of and maybe a Valkyrie in the meantime too. A couple of jabs, and then pretty much everything's dead. Superior Mage Blade. Ooh, maybe that's a 15 ED. Let's go take a look. And I can run, pick that up, and I can run away because I have faster run walk. Oh wow, that actually comes with 13% ED. So, yeah, that's something that maybe you could have traded away or used as a base for something else. And if you took a look here, there's a set of mesh boots that could have been Silkweaves, who knows. But yeah, so general game plan for Javazon, just to cover it once again, shop for equipment, or farm enough gold to shop for equipment. Once you shop for equipment, go to Nightmare Cows, look for a few gear upgrades, including the Harmony Bow. That's probably the big one, I would say, from Nightmare Cows. And then after you do Nightmare Cows, then you can actually start, as you start getting more and more gear upgrades, you can start going for Hell mode, or Hell difficulty, so that you can start getting the high runes. The really important runes that everyone looks for, such as Jaw Rune and Burr Rune, which of course start building up towards Enigma, or other rune words like Infinity. Those are all pretty important. But yeah, that's just the general gist of it. I'm not going to do the full Hell Cow run here, but just giving you a nice broad idea of what's to be expected is kind of what the main focus of this video is supposed to be. So I'm just going to kill this pack here, and then I think I'm out. Alright, yeah, that's I'd say good enough. And besides, I don't have, I didn't actually fill up my belt with mana potions, so this is probably a good time to stop anyway. So that's pretty much it. As you can see, even with trash equipment, Javazon can kill cows. She does lots of AoE damage. She's got great single target damage. Her main weaknesses is that, once again, she doesn't have many mobility boosters, except for faster run walk, and she's not as tanky as a paladin or a barb, but she does have a pretty nice health pool, I would say. And she's got some cool passive skills like evade, avoid, and dodge, which allow her to survive a bit better most of the time. So, yeah, that's basically it for the Javazon. I showed cows in action. Pindle is an option too. That's probably the last thing I'm going to do before I sign off here. You could probably do a Pindle run with Javazon too. But yeah, oop. There we go. So look at that, everything's pretty much dead. 2 battle hammers and some potions, and then I'm out. But yeah, you could actually, as you can see, do some Pindle skin runs too. I wouldn't really recommend this build for lots of other areas. Like, I wouldn't recommend it for running like Mephisto or Andy or like Act bosses or even Ancient Tunnels. The main reason for that is that even though you actually do have a lot of damage, what you don't have is the mobility to get there, right? Like, if I made it to Lost City, if you are playing single player, maybe you would start with Ancient Tunnels right next to the waypoint. I don't know. But assuming that you don't have it right next to the waypoint, then yeah, finding Ancient Tunnels is a little bit more difficult when you don't have skills like Charge or Teleport, of course. And same with trying to get to any of the other Act bosses. Imagine trying to run through all of Catacombs level 2, 3, and then finally 4 just to make it all the way to Andy. Not the best option for a Javazon, of course. You could try the pits. You could try running all the way down to the pits, but you would have a hard time with archers because they are lightning immune. Once again, the reason why I suggest cows, they are not immune to any element, which makes it very ideal for Lightning Fury, which does plenty of lightning damage. And of course, since it's a wide open area, the Lightning Fury is as effective as it can really be because it shoots out lightning in every direction. And it's not tight confined spaces like pits or Ancient Tunnels, so yeah, Lightning Fury works best in cows. Anyway, this is D2D2, signing out.